It's been 7 years since I broke up with Meta ads and went all in on Google. And after making over $250 million across tens of different e-commerce industries and niches, I'm talking beauty, automotive, healthcare, fitness, apparel, you name it, I've probably worked in it. I've learned a few lessons which I want to share with you in this video, starting with the facts that Google Ads plays favorites. And this is something that really took me a long time to internalize and truly believe, because I always believed that if I had the highest bids, if I had the highest budgets, if I made sure my Google Merchant Center quality, my product feed quality was up to par, Google would not do such a thing. But I was proven wrong almost every single time. And I have a great example to actually illustrate this. If we look at two specific brands which we work with right now in the same exact industry, I'm talking same niche, same products, very similar to each other, same landing page design, same basically everything. And this is purely because both of these brands are run by owners which are best friends with each other. So it makes sense that a lot of the things were kind of mimicked in terms of how it was all laid out. But when I started working with both of these brands with Google Ads, and I've been working with these brands for almost a year now, what I came to realize is despite having everything be the same exact in terms of the approaches even, both of them have drastically different results. Starting with the first brand, which has spent $33,000 in the last 30 days, make back only $134,000 in revenue at a 4.05x ROAS. Nothing too crazy, but nothing to overlook either. Looking at the second brand in the last 30 days, similar products, same exact approach, same industry even, spent $31,000, so much less than this brand right here. However, they have made back $214,000 in revenue at a 6.77x ROAS. The results are over six figures in difference. And the reality is Google Ads does this because it plays favorites. This brand right here is doing well, not because it has anything extra, not because it's bidding higher in any way. In fact, if you look at it, the average CPC is much higher for this brand, whereas this one is basically 59 cents. It's purely because of the initial foundation and the relationship this original brand had that's doing well with Google from the get-go. The main reasons why this even happens is because of the history of the brand with Google. How many times did their brand go under for policy violations, for product disapprovals, what kind of initial audience they ended up targeting, and what they did with it, whether it was the right audience, whether they went in and did proper keyword targeting optimizations to then turn things around, go to the right audience, or if they just let things run in the background, hoping and praying things improved. And most important of all, what kind of brand authority they have in the market. The only difference between both of these is the individual small pieces of the puzzle which were connected at different points of time, which is the sole reason why one brand is crushing it, whereas the other brand is basically just running a little bit above profitable levels. And the moral of the story here is Google Ads is going to play favorites. There's nothing you can do about it. And bidding higher, spending more money, that's an outdated strategy that no longer works. What works right now is the fact that you provide Google a reason to give your brand higher quality customers, to give your brand lower CPCs. Then this starts with the foundations you lay out, from the product feed quality, whether you have any policy violations, product disapprovals, to the landing page experience you have, to how often you're making changes within the ad account, and so much more. Don't push this aside, because this is much more important than the bribes you give it to Google to rank your brand. One of the biggest lessons I learned in my 7 years of running Google Ads, which brings me to the second most important lesson I have learned, which is more so a recent lesson, but it's the fact that AI is changing Google's role completely in your buyer's decision-making process. Let me explain. AI has made it so regular shoppers, regular people out and about in the world, your grandma, your grandpa, can become conversationalists in a split second, especially with Google Shopping, because according to Search Engine Land, Google Ads AI overviews now accounts for over 14% of shopping queries. What that means is people are no longer just going on Google and just, for example, typing in home theater seating and just buying what they see right off Google Shopping. They're actually having conversations with robots. They're speaking about their needs, desires, emotions, expressions, everything in between, which was the gap between a user making a decision quickly versus a user taking days and weeks to buy products like these. And AI has basically reduced that to a bare minimum. But that also means that now, instead of people going on Google search and just clicking ads right here to directly buy, or just looking at shopping, they're now utilizing utilizing modes like AI mode, ChatGPT, Claude, etc. a lot more. This is naturally going to reduce the reliance on Google Shopping or Google Search for shoppers. And Although this might seem like some kind of apocalypse, but the reality is this is just contributing to the way Google Ads is run, and it's changing the direction long term for the platform. It's no longer about buying intent. It's more about conversations. The more conversations your products, your brand appears in, the better it's going to scale, especially now. So the brands that are not really focused on this are already behind versus those brands which are going on Google, which are basically typing in things like home theater seating or best home theater seating or whatever the case may be. For example, best skin cream to remove blemishes, for example, or to remove wrinkles, looking at what artificial intelligence is throwing back, looking at what ads are actually appearing here. For example, advertorials, which I'll cover later on in this video because that's another big change and big lesson I learned. It's these brands that are going to consistently scale with Google. And this is not to say that you want to make AI everything when it comes to Google Ads. It should rather be a means to an end goal, not your end goal as a whole. But with that, the third major lesson I learned through my 7 years of running Google Ads, over $250 million in revenue, is getting Google on your side doesn't necessarily mean listening to reps, because what most brands don't realize is those reps that pester you, call you, email you, they have only one agenda. It's to make the Google platform and the Google company more money. The best way to do that is by telling you to go inside your Google Ads account to look at arbitrary values such as the optimization score, make sure this is at 100%, to go in, to increase your bids, to for whatever campaigns for no reason, go in and basically spend more money, especially those that are limited by budget. That's their ultimate goal. And on a surface level, it might seem like they make sense because if something's limited by budget, it's just kind of straightforward to go in and increase the budget, especially if it's already profitable. But the reality is, your level of scale, your level of spend should only level up when your foundation follows up with it. Most brands do the opposite. They go in and improve their Google Ads campaigns. They launch 10 campaigns, 50 campaigns. They reduce bids, increase spend, and they get to a level of scale where no matter how much more money they spend, no matter how much more they bid, they're just never able to break through that plateau. And by this point, they're so far gone ahead by not improving their foundations, by not improving their Google Merchant Center strategy, product feed. It takes them a lot longer to then reduce their top level spend and their top level scale, because they're at the point where they're breaking the business or breaking the algorithm, to then go back, improve the foundations, and then scale again. You want to rather level up your spend and ROAS, then focus on the foundations for a short amount of time before then going back to your spend and bids. But because that's how you truly maintain a good relation with Google. It's by having things like a product feed with 0 errors. It's by keeping policy violations at bay. It's by doing things such as spending a decent amount of money, because ultimately spending a decent amount of money lets you have consistent activity and consistent conversion momentum in your Google Ads account. These two are the main pillars of a good relation with Google. That's why one brand was struggling with Google, whereas the other one, which I showed earlier, was excelling so well. It's all about momentum and consistency, because that momentum then trains the algorithm to find more good people, just like those that are already doing well. Which, by the way, if your brand already makes $50,000 a month or more in revenue and you want to scale profitably and consistently with Google Ads to the next level, scan the QR code on the screen for a free Google Ads audit, where I'll personally go inside your Google Ads account with my team, find all the problems, solutions, and everything in between that's stopping you from blowing up your brand to get to the next level. But fourth lesson I learned, which I honestly think is one of the biggest lessons, is if the numbers are too good to be true within your Google Ads account, something's wrong. And this might seem a bit counterintuitive, but I have a perfect example of this for a brand which we actually have been handling Google Ads for almost 6 months at this point. This brand is the #1 brand in the automotive industry. Everybody in the automotive industry that loves cars knows about this brand, which is why if we look right now, we're scaling this brand at a 26x ROAS. This is to cold traffic, by the way, not branded traffic, because the brand owner was effed up by the last agency they worked with to the point where they actually completely let go of running Google Ads. And if we look at the last 390 days of results, we can actually see this in action once it loads up right here. So if we change this to, for example, monthly basis, we can see that overall they were spending a lot of money on Google in the previous months. And we were not working with this brand in 2025, but as you can see, they were spending $15,000, $16,000 a month. They even went up to spending $30,000 in the month of December. But the problem was all of this ROAS was driven up by branded traffic and inappropriate and inaccurate conversion tracking. So what this brand originally thought was Google Ads was the best platform to be on because they were so profitable. They were making so much money at this point. As you can see, 17x ROAS, 18x ROAS. But when we came in, when we did a complete audit, what I came to realize is, hey, this 19x ROAS, 17x ROAS, it's 70% branded traffic. And the reports that these brand owners were getting from their current agency were all basically leaving out the important parts of which keywords were driving the revenue, because they were just giving them top level metrics like, hey, the ROAS is at 18x, we're spending 30,000, let's spend more money. So as a result, once they start to understand and realize that this is a big issue that's going on, they completely dropped their spend from 30,000 to basically 3,000 because they could no longer afford to just get more traffic from branded sales. And that's essentially where we came in. We came in around this level right here. Basically, we started February of 2026 and we had reduced the spend already at that point. What we did is all of the campaigns we started running during this time, we completely excluded branded traffic to force it to go after cold traffic only. As you can see, the enabled campaigns are all that are basically run by us. We only have one campaign running at the moment because they wanted to reduce the spend overall to focus more on fulfillment issues. And that's essentially what we did. We ran this Performance Max campaign with branded traffic completely excluded. So if we go on over to campaign settings, we can get a better understanding of how this campaign is actually set up. So if we scroll all the way down right here, although it's bidding equally for new and existing customers, we have brand exclusions going on right here with a brand list, which is essentially all the keywords that people would search up to find this brand. Everything, we basically devoured over 2 years worth of data to understand these keywords, added it as an exclusion, and now this brand runs purely on a cold traffic basis because we want nothing else besides cold traffic from this brand. And we can see there's a variety of different keywords now actually driving revenue, now actually driving conversions, because this is the beauty of reducing the reliance on branded traffic and going all in on cold traffic. But essentially, the main reason why this brand came to us was because they believed their numbers were too good to be true, which led us on this big hunt of figuring out exactly what's causing these numbers to be so good, which ultimately led us to the conclusion that, hey, branded traffic was the main reason why these numbers look so great. But for your brand, it might be different. It might be because your tracking is not set up properly, and that could be one reason why your numbers look too good to be true. You want to be very cautious with these, especially if your agency is not essentially giving you a clear idea or clear data of how your numbers look, because more often than not, they may be hiding the fact that their incompetence is leading to a lot of branded traffic sales, which leads me to the next biggest lesson. Consistency is everything. Maintaining traction with Google isn't just about getting more revenue or getting more sales. That is the good part about Google, and that's why so many brands prefer running Google Ads nowadays, especially over Meta or TikTok with so much competition. But it's more about feeding the algorithm enough data for it to go out into the market and get you more consistency and more people just like those that already converted. And essentially what that means is if you have a brand, for example, like in this situation, we have a brand that's very high ticket. This brand has always struggled with consistency. So if we look right here last 60 days, because once we started working with this brand, they started actually getting a lot of consistency. But flash forward a few weeks ago, they were basically getting one sale, then nothing else for the rest of the time period. And the conversion tracking was messed up. So a lot of the times they were getting 0 conversions, but it was double and triple tracking. But they would go days without a single conversion, if any sorts. What we did essentially when we came in is figure out what are these sub-events we can add to this campaign and to this approach, which by the way, I've made a whole video on how to scale high ticket brands, which you can check out on my channel, which actually goes over this brand in detail, but essentially adding in sub-events, figuring out exactly how we can add momentum, consistency in any way possible by adding in more conversion events or anything along those lines. That helped us add more consistency, which also helped the algorithm get more events recorded through the door, which ultimately led us to getting more sales long term. And that's what most brands actually miss out on. It's that consistent momentum, that consistent scale, because they have some good days, but then they have 3 days where they don't get a single sale, then they have 2 good days, then they have 1 unprofitable day. And this level of inconsistency, what it does is it reduces the quality of data coming through your account. And over time, this can add up as a snowball effect. Any future audiences you target also have the same fate, where it's basically low quality traffic to maybe medium quality traffic at best. And it's this constant influx influx of low and medium quality people coming through the door, which makes it extremely difficult to scale. So at the end of the day, your brand needs to rely and basically focus on consistency with Google if your goal is to scale long term, which brings me to the last big lesson on my list, which is advertorials plus Google Ads is the new blue ocean strategy on Google. And the perfect example of this is essentially, for example, if we go on Google again, best skin cream to remove wrinkles. An advertorial styled approach essentially is one where basically you are targeting a search campaign to 10 different best skincare creams to solve the problem of wrinkles or whatever specific keyword, which is a problem solving keyword, something your users can actually conversate around and have conversations around, is what you want to be targeting with search campaigns, with any ads you do. And from there, the main goal is to run an advertorial styled ad where the number one product that is recommended is your own product. And the 9 can be competitors. It can be your own products as well. That's up to you to decide. But this is what I classify as an advertorial styled ad. And this is the new blue ocean strategy because, again, going back to my previous topic of AI plus Google Ads, this directly plays into how AI conversations are happening in the realm right now, and how these advertorial styled ads have a much greater chance of appearing on AI-based keyword searches, AI-based conversations versus a normal buying intent shopping ad. And the goal here is not to go in and put all of your eggs in one basket, to spend all of your money on advertorials. It's to rather use the Pareto principle where 80% of your budget is still going towards search campaigns which are proven to work, i.e. buying intent campaigns like a dynamic search campaign or a collection-based search campaign or even product-specific search campaigns. But the rest of the 20% of the budget should be going towards those advertorial styled ads where it's going to a blog page. It's educating the audience because you need AI relevance in 2026 to truly scale your brand with Google Ads, which brings me to the last and I believe the most important lesson that you can learn about Google, which is Google doesn't care about your product quality. It cares about the perceived value of your product. Sounds backwards, but the reality is Google isn't going to understand what the quality of your product is. So you could go into your Google Merchant Center, you could go into your landing pages, put all of your benefits, spend all day and night writing up all of these benefits, specifications of what your product actually allows and has, but it wouldn't really move the needle because the reality is Google cares more about the perceived value of your product and how it looks through your product images, through your product titles, Google Merchant Center strategy, whether it causes people to spend more time on your landing pages or whether people bounce right away. What's your expected CTRs? What's the relevance of the keywords you have in the product titles versus what people are searching for? All these things lead towards long-term scale, especially now, because yes, product quality is important for LTV. It's important that you run a real business that actually provides quality products to a customer and makes their life better, easier, or whatever other problem you solve. But at the same time, Google needs to see that these people are interacting with your ads and with your products in a positive and a sustainable manner. Because if Google notices these gaps within the perceived value and the quality of the interaction, it doesn't matter if you sell a product that solves world hunger, Google could care less about it. But with that, here's what I want to leave you with. Keep things simple with Google Ads, keep things straightforward, because the more complicated you make your approaches, the more difficult you make it for the algorithm to go from point A to point B, the harder it is going to be for you to scale your brand profitably and consistently long term. But again, if you run a brand making $50,000 a month or more, you want some extra help scaling with Google Ads, scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description below for a free Google Ads audit where I'll personally go with my team inside your ad account, find the problem, solutions, even give you a 90-day scaling roadmap based on your needs and goals. And if it makes sense, work together to scale long term.